Our first reader today, officially, is going to be Rodney Bloom. He wrote this. He told me that this introduction was the hardest thing he'd ever written. Former truck driver, bike messenger, hitchhiker, and current composter enthusiast and aspiring writer, Rodney Bloom shares stories of his life and of those around him through a blend of poetry and prose and sometimes recipes. An East Coast native, Rodney and his wife plied 3,300 miles of asphalt in a second-hand school bus named the Jade Dragon to arrive in Oregon, along with the new millennium, in search of change and growth, and found it in abundance. Rodney is currently working on his very first book. Welcome, Rodney Bloom.
Story, it's called Homeward Bound. This is not going well. You see, I wasn't supposed to die in the hospital. The expectation was that I would pass away quietly in my sleep at home. It was an entirely different plan, easy to execute. But then there was a concerned neighbor, the ensuing ruckus, the police, the medics, and before you knew it, I was back in the hospital. Now my wife needed to get me out of here, but first, to make this work, a little makeup to put color back in my face, and a little smile to be added as well. A shaky wheelchair will have to do to move me through the sterile corridors of tile and linoleum. It doesn't take much to disguise my deceased self as an outpatient, and in a short time we're on our way. Her, the concerned spouse, and me happy and discharged, propped up in the wheelchair, painted on smile, cap on my head, pulled down over my eyes, and a bouquet of flowers in my lap, just for effect. Oh, the things we ask of those dearest to us. I grin down icy corridors, past the room, past the nurse's station, down the hallway into the waiting elevator. My wife pushes us straight in and hits lobby. All she wants to do is to get us in the car as far away from this place as she can. Come on, come on. This is going to take all she's got, more creativity than she's ever mustered before. She starts to preen and fuss over me in the privacy of the elevator, ever so slowly ascending to the lobby. She musses my collar, straightens it out again. Her hands are busy, but all the time the thoughts keep racing through her mind. What am I doing here? Why did I ever agree to do this? I'm no good at this sort of thing. Someone else, I should have left it for someone else to handle. And it's not too late. No one will have missed him yet. I can turn around, I can take him back. This can all be over with. And then I'll call Nathan or Molly, and they'll know what to ding. Startled, her attention snaps to the elevator control panel, and she sees the display of an L. Grabs the handles of the wheelchair, and with a mighty shove sends us bumping into the lobby. The old wheelchair is worse off than she realized. One of the hard rubber tires seems flattened on one side and the bearings are shot. We jiggle and bump our way through the lobby, my body registering every jarring moment, cat going askew. An attendant passes who recognized me from a previous stay. Looking good, Mr. Bloom. Each acknowledgement from staff tightens her grips on the handle. Another voice questions in moderate sincerity from behind the desk. Leaving so soon, Mr. Bloom? I'm so glad you're feeling better. Yes, I'm feeling much better now, thank you, responds my wife, head down to obscure the moving lips of her best male impersonation. Don't come back anytime soon, comes the saccharine response. Count on it, my wife mumbles to herself. Once outside, she makes a beeline to the far corner of the parking lot, moving as fast as she can. To hell with inconspicuous, I want out. The parking lot is crossed in leaps and bounds. The well-used wheelchair rattles loudly on the asphalt's rough surface. She closes the distance up the mild slope of the parking lot to the little awaiting Honda, and before the wheelchair stops rolling, jumps in front of me to the car door, wheelchair softly nudging her from behind. The inside of her head feels like a firing range. This is not going well. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Hands tremble as she fumbles for the car key. They slip out of her pocket and out of her hands, hitting the ground. She snatches them up from the pavement, singles out the car key, and finds herself shaking so badly that she can't fit the key into the lock. This is not going well. This is not going well. Trembling hands repeatedly misguide the car key. Boom! It hits the surrounding chrome of the lock. Again, boom! Scrape! She completely misses the lock and scratches the paint on the door. I can't open the door. The irrational starts to take hold. Boom! Scratch! Did I bend the key? Is this the right Honda? Try both hands. Slowly and deliberately place the key into the lock to open the door. Key goes in, but now won't turn. She turns to me angrily. I thought you were going to lube these locks on the car. She tries the key again. Jiggle, jiggle. Do you need help? An unexpected voice from a few rows away. No, I'm fine, comes out her reply in a broken voice. Jiggle, jiggle. You're sure you're okay? I'm fine, mind your own business, she bellows as suddenly the key turns effortlessly. The wounded Samaritan climbs back in his car and pulls off. She flings the door open in relief, which rebounds, catches her in the knee, causing her to let out an audible groan. It is only now that she becomes aware of the honking. Who is the idiot on the horn? And, oh my God, where is my husband? Having neglected to set the brake on the wheelchair and having parked on a slight grade, I, in my wheelchair, have slowly rolled away backwards from the car as she was trying to get the door open. I am now sitting and smiling patiently in the middle of a parking lot intersection, surrounded by befuddled motorists blowing their horns who seem to expect me to wheel myself out of the way. Words try to come out of her mouth, but a gasp is all that she can articulate. My wife breaks into a sprint as several of the motorists step up from their cars in frustration and confusion to help me move out of the way. This is not going well. This is not going well. At full gallop, she screams, I've got it. I've got it. Get back in your cars. Leave him alone. Don't touch him. Hands in front, she barrels through the drivers, throwing herself between me and those now closest. Time is suspended as everyone freezes and all try to comprehend the moment. My wife in the middle of an increasing number of dismounted drivers. Cover, cover, think. She takes a deep breath, swallows hard, and tries to slow her heartbeat. A small crowd has now gathered, and their presence tightens like a noose, squeezing her chest to the point of suffocation, when suddenly out of nowhere the words flow from her mouth, addressing me, voice tinged with mock impatience. I don't believe you. I asked you to wait for me. I told you that I was going to get the car. Why do you act this way? There is another drawn silence. The gathered look quizzically at each other, dissatisfaction holding with disbelief. She raises her eyes to quickly judge the mood of the crowd, and deeming it close enough, takes a moment to lightly brush off my clothes, then hers. She gathers up what few shards of dignity are left to her and proceeds to push the wheelchair through the parting waters. This is not going well. This is not going as planned. Her whole body aches. She wants to stop. She wants to just lay down and let all of this go by. But it won't. It can't. It is stubborn reality. After a quick wrestling match, I am in the passenger seat of the Honda Civic. Should have planned for the pickup instead. She climbs in, looks to me, waiting for me to speak, waiting for the unsolicited corrections to her driving that I have always given as a passenger. Years of driving professionally had always left me with too much to say and too little to do as a passenger. Now at last I am quiet and ready to ride. She looks again. Time to go. Sadness and disappointment turn the ignition and sparks race through the electronic ignition and spark the little car into life. She pauses. It's hard for her. She isn't used to all this stealth and subterfuge. She isn't used to holding in grief. I have asked a lot of her. She reaches across me and fumbles for my seatbelt, hauls it across my chest, and clicks it into place. Got to keep moving. Reddened eyes check rear and side view mirrors, clutch, shift, a little screech of tires, and she is backed out of the parking space. A hard cut of the wheel and another low screech sends the Honda gently careening through the rows of parked cars. The hospital briefly fills her view, and she wonders how many inside are dealing with crisis, how many are saying final goodbyes, and how many are planning to steal their loved one's body from the hospital. A left turn here, a right turn there, stop at the crosswalk, a pause at the stop sign, and we're on our way. It is now official. The hospital gradually, gratefully diminishes in size in the rearview mirror. The calls went out as soon as it could no longer be denied. I was not long for this world. Friends mobilized from all over the valley. Family jumped on planes, cars were rented, rides arranged, stopping at airports to pick up the passengers they had never met, rising to the call. The buildings pass by. The sun, unsure of itself, peeks out from behind a glassy veil of clouds and diffuses painfully. My wife reaches in front of me, pops open the glove, retrieves a small case. With the ripping of Velcro, sunglasses are secured and she slips them on. She looks at me a little longer than she should, looks at the road again, but soon turns back to me. Her expression is of stifled intention. A dry shudder rumbles through her shoulders as steering wheel and body veer to the right. 30 seconds of idling motor and consideration, and she turns the key off, sitting in the stony silence, though cars and tractor trailers rush by, rocking the little compact car. None of this makes any sense whatsoever. You're supposed to grieve. You're supposed to dress in black. You're supposed to sit and accept friends' condolences and bad casseroles. But we had talked about this. When this moment would come, we had talked about what each of us wanted, what I wanted, and why I wanted it. It was the only thing in this world that had ever made sense to me. I had never been drawn into others' philosophies of ultimate purpose and meaning, or afterlife, or reincarnations. We're just borrowed matter, I would tell my wife, all of us, in the semblance of sparks, waters, and mineral that interacted with each other and everything around us. We are all truly products of our environment, shapes of the earth, as John Trudell once said. When I was through with my procurement of elements, I wanted to make sure to return them to their rightful owner in the same fine condition that I originally received them in. Ante up. Compost me when I go. She knew this, she remembered this. She didn't quite agree with it and its oversimplicity, but she respected it because she loved me. It was a simple request that had turned into a crazy and elaborate scheme, but at this point it was duty. Something that you make happen out of perceived honor, not out of sense. So, with logic suspended and honor at stake, who was she to fight the impulse? She reaches in front of me once again with unhesitant purpose and pops the glove once again, digs under the pile of frayed road maps blindly with searching fingertips until she locates a second case. The insistent rip of Velcro releases a second pair of sunglasses. Reaching in front of me, she drops the visor, exposes the vanity mirror, and uses it to position the sunglasses on my face. With a few slight adjustments, she is satisfied. The case is closed, returned to the glove, and its door is defiantly slapped shut. Right hand turns the key as the left hand hits the blinker, and with the little engine goosed up to 2,500 RPM, she pops the clutch. A spit of gravel snaps the Honda back into traffic, roaring and shifting. The interstate gives way to state roads, then county roads, then hardly any roads at all. Cities become towns, become settlements, become new growth, become lush forests. Deeper and deeper until you no longer know what state you are in or what country for that matter. Everyone is a part. There are no spectators, no bystanders. Friends and family wait in the secluded grove of trees awaiting for our arrival. We knew that this wasn't going to be easy for anyone, and so we anticipated that a little lubrication might help. Liters, six-packs, carafes, all sit in cases long ago opened. Much more than the assembled could ever consume, but they are trying. Bottles uncorked and half consumed are raised in toast to the approaching Honda, and soon a reverie drowns out the crunching of leaves and snapping of twigs under the low steel-belted radials. The guest of honor has arrived. The group staggers forward as the Honda shudders to a halt, and the mob gets their first look at me since receiving the news. Arms go slack by their sides, though their bottles don't drop, and a hush falls over the crowd. Jaws hang loose. Glassy eyes widen with comprehension as they take in the sight of the stiffened passenger and his exhausted chauffeur. Again, time stops. The moment seems to last for an eternity until an unseen hand throws the switch of a remembrance, of purpose, and of occasion. A raucous cheer goes up, and the moment is suddenly under the direction of George Romero as a Honda is rushed by the staggering crowd. My wife comes to in shock and horror as the passenger door is flung open and a dozen hands reach for me, tugging in vain to remove me from the car until another half-dozen hands fumble successfully with my seatbelt. My wife reaches instinctively for me to prevent my extraction in vain as I am taken away. With another cheer, the loopy pallbearers raise me up overhead and carry me robustly atop many hands to the nearest tree stump, where, considering my present determination to stay positioned at right angles, I am seated. It is not long before another roar goes up from the crowd as most stumble back to the car to lift my wife out, who is now all but collapsed from the ordeal. Soused zombies lovingly and enthusiastically lift her limp frame from the car and cradle her. Others have stayed behind with me, clapping my shoulders as they turn to one another to express with surprise, "He doesn't look bad, not bad at all." The he turns into you, and I'm invited back into the world. "I'm really glad you're here. I'm really glad you made it, man. I wouldn't have missed this for the world." One celebrant thinks to uncork a bottle, which is then pressed to my lips and upended. The booze, with no place to go, runs off my pursed lips and down my front. I quit drinking years ago and am not about to start again at this late date. On the other side of the grove, my wife sits partially revived. Exhaustion has disabled her defenses as she accepts drinks and condolences. Before long, the details of her bizarre odyssey begin to slip out to an amazed audience. The mood of the evening starts to take hold. Surrounded by inebriated love, she knows that she will eventually find laughter in her sorrow, a slight smile behind her tears, and new breath where there was only suffocation. The night wears on as we gather in a circle. Propane lanterns and a small fire is stoked, spotlighting the proceedings, me on my stump, as celebrants recall stories real and imagined. The repast precedes the funeral. Facts are blurred, and stories blend until the most unlikely of a lifetime is constructed for the party's guest of honor, the way of memory. Eventually, we all become only what we are imagined to have been. The strongest tethers are what hold. Shouting, holding, crying, uproarious laughter ring through the grove, and beyond them turns to quieter reflection as the flames retreat to embers. The stories come more slowly now, and then not at all, as they are laid on the soft and damp forest floor. Words turn to sighs and soft grunts of acknowledgement. Light, time, and eyelids soften. All have expended more energy than realized. Reserves are spent, and as the evening is finally surrendered, and the members of this new forest family say goodnight and fumble their way to pass out in cars, or, failing that, find a good tree to park under for the night, the attention ever so slowly turns back to the living, as it should. and the satisfaction for what they have created, the product of many hands, many voices, and many souls. Late morning light illuminates the bloodshot assembly. Shoulders are gently shaken, and unintentional camouflage is gently pulled from hair and beards. Another day above ground, murmurs a celebrant, and what would otherwise be taken as a demonstrably inappropriate is met only with silent nods. Reddened eyes find me no longer seated, a sweater lovingly draped over my shoulders as I lay in my soft bed of ever-growing materials, leaves, straw, sawdust. Some respectfully gather forest stuff to add to the growing pile. Others wish me well on my journey with small flowers and plants add forest. Buddhist chants, Christian prayers, pagan rituals infuse the impromptu farewell. The act of commitment is always for the living, and the gathered make use of it, for there is only the growing pile and the gradual engulfment of the funny painted-on smile. After the shock, after the sadness, after the memories, after the commemorative t-shirts, the wake in the woods, and after the repeated passing of seasons, she thoughtfully wends her way back. The Honda and its witness has been replaced by a dated Isuzu pickup, wheezing its way up logging roads. She takes her time. She wants to. She has to. Years and overgrowth have now obscured the landmarks and outcroppings she once depended on. At each fork she pauses, considers, and decides. Instinct, always one of her greatest strengths, guides her faithfully, decision by decision. This time there is no welcoming committee, drunk or sober. Her only companion is Seymour, the stunted sequoia sapling she and her husband had unintentionally bound to a pot, never knowing where to free him. Seymour is a much more compliant passenger than her husband ever was, riding quietly, straining to see over the dashboard. The little sapling has waited long for this, never understanding the confinement of his roots. He has dreamt of rich forest humus, layers of duff, and trembles in anticipation, or maybe it's just the vibrations from the bad front end of the battered pickup. She trusts, she drives, she arrives. The grove has changed, but it still resonates with their plans with that day. She releases Seymour's seatbelt before getting out of the truck door, and then hesitates, awash in a sudden flood of memories. Ghosts step back far enough from the truck door to let her out, but stay near, in need of company. She retrieves the tools that she brought with her from the back of the Isuzu and leans them against the truck, and then opens the passenger door. "You're home now, Seymour." She waits for the stunted sapling's response, but it's irrelevant. He already knows. She hesitates again, considering the shovel, the rake, the spading fork, now leaning against the truck, and decides she will use her hands and slowly coax a wide and deep enough hole for Seymour to reside in. It needs no fertilizer. Everything is there. Once in the soil, patted into place, Seymour receives his first cool drink of fresh spring water, gathered in gallon jugs on their drive in. The heavy taste of the coming rains hangs all around them. Roots, mycelium, and microbes embrace the new visitor. Is Seymour's color already deepening from suburban to forest green? He stands quietly, affirming his grip on his new home, his roots shocked by the touch of new soil, excited for its promise. The wind circles high, making treetops dance and drying leaves rustle. They had chosen this place together, she and her husband, sought it out for him. Now she wonders if this will eventually be her place too. She wishes Seymour well, hard not to feel that she is abandoning yet another loved one to the wild, and she stays long and late until the gratitude of the wind, of the soil, and of the approaching rains release her and wish her safe passage home. Thank you.